All right, joining us first on the show today, this big Tuesday edition of the Steak for Breakfast podcast. He's the congressman who represents Florida's 19th congressional district, and joining us for the first time, Mr. Byron Donalds. Welcome to the show.
How you doing? Good being with you.
Glad to catch up with you. Coming off the heels of a busy weekend, I saw that you were up in Detroit. You obviously participated in the Turning Point USA event and spoke at the 180 Church. Kind of want to get some commentary, having have gone through those two experiences. Starting off with the 180 Church, I mean, that was a pretty well-attended question and answer town hall style event for you and President Trump. The media tries to spin this thing, Congressman, into like so many African Americans and other demographics within the United States leaving the Democrat Party and coming back to the America First tent. But I think, when you guys go out there, that's not necessarily your direct intention. It's kind of to present the American people like, we remember what life was like under Donald Trump. We now have had almost 4 years of Joe Biden and his broken world policies, and we now give you the plausible alternative to get this country back on the right track.
Yeah, I'd say that's exactly right. When we go out and we do these events, whether it's with President Trump or without him, it's really about taking the message about our ideas and then really contrasting that with what's happened the last 4 years. I mean, I call Joe Biden the master of disaster. I mean, the man is just awful. Things are not going well. And so what you find is when you talk to voters, not political pundits, not political commentators, when you talk to people, Americans, they're just as frustrated as I am, as you are. And so it's about helping them, direct that frustration in the right course. And I think for voters, it's not staying home, it's voting for Donald Trump. And so when you're out there, taking his message, some people are skeptical. They remember all the stuff the media talks about and all that stuff. But I remind people like that's all just fomented. Most of that stuff is not really important at all. That's just what the media wants you to focus on. What really matters is what's going on in your pocketbook, what's going on at our southern border, what's going on around the world. That's the stuff that really matters. And so, when we go out and we have these conversations with voters, it resonates. And I think that's why you're starting to see his numbers with minority voters move in his direction, which is, I think, a good thing for the country.
No, I think it is as well. I mean, Donald Trump always goes out there and, he'll often make the references as like conservative or liberal, whether it be Democrat or Republican. Like he wants to be the common sense president and make the decisions that best affect everyone, not just the party that he's representing, on the ticket. And I think that's resonated with a lot of people. They've also had the opportunity, like back in 2015, to see the real Donald Trump, like the touchable, retail politician who can get out there and literally be with the people. And it's genuine. It's not staged. You don't have to clear out a Wawa or pretend that, you get tips at the cash registers or do all the weird things that Joe Biden and the Democrats tend to do. I mean, I'm pretty sure you saw on social media some of the poor attempts of grilling that happened over the weekend and how just, they just have no connection with the American people. They are the elites. And Donald Trump's bringing it back to the working blue collar middle class. And that's where I kind of want to go with you next. The biggest issues facing Americans right now, I think when you talk about the economy and inflation, we're heading into the summer, the cost of energy and fuel, the amount of your paycheck, over 70% now, to put a roof over your head, gas in your car, and feed your family at the bare minimum. And then you talk about the open border, which has led directly to insecurity and safety in the streets. And even like with the terrorists that were apprehended last week, you have some big national security concerns as well.
Well, I think you're right about all those topics. I was on Meet the Press on Sunday, and I told them, I said, look, what's ailing the Black community, which is what's really ailing every community, is it's harder and harder for people to make ends meet. People, their wages might be slightly higher, but the cost of products are significantly higher. So how can you get ahead? If you're a middle income American, how can you begin to put more money in your 401k or get money for a home or whatever you're trying to do when the price of food, the price of gas, the price of electricity, the price of rent, all that stuff is up? How can you really get ahead? How can you build that generational wealth? And so that's a core thing of what's really ailing people. Then when you get to the border, you can't have a situation where you're bringing in millions of people every single year. Our cities can't even handle it. Denver, Colorado, their population is around 700,000, 800,000 people. They have about 60,000 illegal aliens in Denver, Colorado. So what's happening? They're in their hospitals. You have children, illegal alien children in the schools. Well, who does that take away from? It takes away from the poor community in Denver, Colorado, the middle income community in Denver, Colorado. It doesn't have to be this way. And I think that's where you have President Trump's policies. When you compare that directly to what Joe Biden has done, that's why a lot of people want Donald Trump back.
No, it's the truth. And, again, you look at the plausible alternatives to what's going on right now. When it comes to the world stage, Joe Biden just had a disastrous week at the G7. If he wasn't falling asleep, he was walking off and trying to talk to people that weren't listening to him and then stumbling through, speaking event after speaking event when he attended, because he ditched a couple of them, in addition to how that's kind of trickled down to and through all of his cabinet members and into policies that are just crushing Americans right now. It seems like you guys are really picking up steam at the right time. And, but I do want to talk about the job that's been done in the House of Representatives this year. Now, we try to do the best job we can to clarify for our listenership, because there's a lot of people out there who think that, with the flip of a switch, the House Republicans can, stop a trial or dispatch the Capitol Police and do this, that, and the other thing. We kind of say, there is a process that goes with investigations and oversights, and to, kind of confirm their validity, they have to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb to make sure the results they're producing for the American people are the true and accurate ones, not just allegations as much you see from your Democrat counterparts when it comes to a lot of things involving, everything from Donald Trump to items with the budget. But when you look at the generational change that's happened in Congress over the last couple of years, Congressman, you have to admit, you guys are kind of picking up steam a little bit in regards to holding Joe Biden accountable. The receipts are starting to be produced, whether it's holding Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress, issuing subpoenas for Jim and Hunter Biden, and, doing things that are going to support a robust legislative agenda, hopefully, which will be Agenda 47 starting in January of next year.
Well, I'll tell you, from a congressional perspective, a lot of stuff has happened. First of all, we proved to everybody that, the laptop from hell was real. You finally had the FBI had to admit that in federal court that it was real this entire time. We've tracked down the $30 million that Joe Biden and his family have taken from China, from Russia, from Ukraine, from Uzbekistan, and a couple other countries, and the companies and outfits that those countries directly back. We've been able to really get to the bottom of what's going on at the Department of Justice. There is a two-tier system of justice going on over there, where they decide to pick and choose. Like, look, the House just held Merrick Garland in contempt for defying a congressional subpoena. And so the DOJ just came out today and said that they weren't going to prosecute. Now, I'm not really surprised that the DOJ is not going to prosecute the Attorney General of the United States. But at the same time, this is the same DOJ that prosecuted Peter Navarro for not complying with the January 6th committee congressional subpoena, or Steve Bannon. So they've prosecuted two Americans for being in contempt, but Merrick Garland won't prosecute, obviously, himself. So this is the two-tier system that we're talking about. And, when I do press interviews, the media will say, well, the Department of Justice is prosecuting Hunter Biden. Well, that's only because we had to do the work in Congress, in the House majority, a Republican majority in the House, to uncover the fact that the Department of Justice tried to give Hunter Biden a sweetheart deal. They tried to put all his FARA violations, and they tried to put his tax evasion charges under that gun charge he was just found guilty of in Delaware.
Right.
So they gave him the sweetest deal ever saw. The only reason that didn't go through is because of our investigative work holding the Biden administration accountable. Last but not least, we've uncovered the fact that this administration has spied on the American people. They have suppressed the free speech of the American people. They try to force 80 million Americans to take a vaccine against their will using OSHA. This administration is in violation of Supreme Court precedent, which is a violation of separation of powers around forgiving student loans. I mean, the list goes on and on. And to simplify it all, the Democrats have been lecturing everybody for the last 4 years that they're the ones that are going to save democracy. But when you actually look at what they've done, they are the party that has been operating as a fascist regime, abusing the rule of law, abusing separation of powers, and really being close to being a very dictatorial in a lot of their decisions. And that is not what a representative republic is supposed to be about.
No, that's a really excellent point that you make there. And I kind of want to stick in the thread of the DOJ and talk about, even though it's from the Manhattan DA's office, the upcoming potential sentencing of Donald Trump and what that might look like. I know you guys have had the opportunity, both with Donald Trump up on Capitol Hill recently and the times that you're all able to get out to Mar-a-Lago and discuss, campaign strategy and what the future session of Congress is going to look like as well. But this is something that, a lot of people from both sides of the aisle has weighed in on. And it doesn't seem like anybody could get a strong enough take because of the unprecedented nature of the conviction election here and who it is regarding. The former president of the United States, who's currently the presumptive nominee in the party, running directly in the next election following his last term in office. So I know as you guys are kind of trying to circle the wagons around President Trump, there is the potentiality that he could wind up in prison or home arrest during, some part of the rest of the campaign season heading up to the November election, and how you guys are preparing to take that head on.
Well, first, I think that would be atrocious, and that would be a really bad look for the United States of America. We have lectured other countries around the globe about prosecuting political rivals, and yet and still it's now happened in the United States. Secondarily, what happened in Lower Manhattan was a travesty, not just of Donald Trump's constitutional rights, which every American has, but a travesty of federal jurisdiction versus state jurisdiction. What they essentially tried to convict or did convict Donald Trump of was basically saying he interfered with the 2016 election using money that was in violation of campaign finance. But the Federal Election Commission had already looked at that. They already investigated that, and they said there was nothing to see there. So you have a lower jurisdiction at the state level, basically trying to enforce federal law. That's a violation of jurisdictional prudence. Then you get into the fact that they wouldn't even tell Donald Trump what he was being tried for until the end of the trial. That's a violation of your Fourth and Sixth Amendment constitutional rights. So people try to say, the Democrats try to be like, Donald Trump's not above the law. You're right, he's not, but he's not below the law either. So now we move to this nutty, crazy sentencing phase. I don't believe that they're going to put restrictions on him because I think the people would revolt. You already saw that with the $400 million he's raised in the 4 to 5 days after he was convicted. So I don't think they're going to do that. I think what they've always wanted is the talking point. But they have been so bad at their agenda. It has been so bad for America. I don't think their talking point is going to matter. And I think you've seen that in the polling that has come out post-conviction. Nobody cares because they know it was a show trial anyway. I think when it comes to the convention, I think everything's going to run smoothly. And I think Donald Trump's going to be out there campaigning. And you're still going to have people like myself, Marco, JD, so many others who are going to be all across the country campaigning for Donald Trump because we got to get him back in the White House.
How's that experience been for you you mentioned Senator Rubio and J.D. Vance from Ohio. How's it been being at the center of some of that conversation in regards to the vice president? We think you do a great job up on Capitol Hill. You're a strong legislator. You gave in your tale of the tape to CNN when you informed them that you really weren't scared of anything. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter, what kind of is thrown in front of you. You seem to be at the forefront of all of these issues. You referenced being on, Meet the Fake Press over the weekend. It's like you're not just going on Fox News. You're going into opposition territory and you're laying out the facts there. But how has that experience been, kind of like a confirmation of the job that you've done as a representative, not just of Florida 19, but overall up on Capitol Hill to even be in the conversation of something like for Vice President of the United States?
Surreal, man. It's been surreal to say the least. Really, I just take it day by day, enjoying the journey for what it is. It's an honor, the president and his team, have that level of faith in me. But when I got elected to Florida 19 to be their member of Congress, I told them I was going to take the message of conservative policies everywhere. And that's what I've been committed to. My team is committed to that. And it's really resonating with people. And I think that's how I ended up on this list, being able to resonate with voters all across the country. But I'm about winning. At the end of the day, Donald Trump's going to pick who he's going to pick to be vice president. I just want to win, make sure we do the right thing in 2025, because that's when the real game begins. You got to get through the elections. Hopefully, we're very successful. And then in 2025, we got to get the job done. You can't stall out. You can't say, we need a filibuster-proof Senate. None of that. You got to get the job done, period. That's what the American people are expecting. And that's what I believe we're going to deliver.
No, I think so as well. And then, that's very similar to the answer that we got recently from Dr. Ben Carson, who's a regular contributor on the show. We got a great relationship with him and his team that's, working as he's been in the conversation as well. And we just think that, out of the people that we've heard recently in the press, and we don't even know if it's accurate because they put out these news bits, but it's kind of for you to kind of digest and speak over, probably to see in hindsight, what the American people are looking for. But out of all the people that are getting vetted right now, there's a big quality group of candidates there. And, when you talk about the job that you've done, it seems like when we bring congressmen and women on the show who go up there and speak in the same sense that you do, that you went up to Washington, D.C. to be a fighter, to represent them and not be afraid of anything, you live so much easier than someone who's always running away from the press or has to go back to their constituents and said, you campaigned on America first, but then you went up to Washington Hill, and every time the rules are suspended, you just voted with the other side and the big blob of the uniparty. So I think it's led to a lot of the successes you've had, and it's definitely a contribution to the job you're doing for the American people. Congressman, how do you feel about the upcoming presidential debate? I mean, we're going to have that a little bit less than a month before Donald Trump's sentencing and the RNC convention. Do you buy into the narrative that the Democrats are so worried at this point that they are validly looking for a new candidate to represent them at the top of the ticket, or do you feel like it's going to remain Joe Biden up to this point?
I think it's going to still be Joe Biden. Look, I know they're concerned. I've heard the rumblings personally. They won't say it publicly, but I've heard them. But at the end of the day, who are you going to put in that place to go against Donald Trump? It's going to be very, very difficult, because even if they replace Joe Biden, that person has to answer for all of the policies. What are they going to do? So they're not going to follow through on the same type of policies? That's not true. I said this morning, it doesn't matter, frankly, who the Democrat nominee is. It could be Kamala Harris. It could be Gavin Newsom. It could be Gretchen Whitmer. It could be Bernie Sanders. It could be Elizabeth Warren. They're all going to do the same thing. It just so happens that Joe Biden is the one who's president and has done this stuff. And then secondarily, the man just looks awful. He looks like he's a shell of himself. And that's truly sad. But at the end of the day, we need leadership and we need the right policies. That man's Donald Trump. It doesn't matter who the Democrats put up. America, you will get more of the same thing. I promise you.
No, you hit it right on the head there. We still feel like it's going to be Joe Biden. I mean, it's such a finite amount of time between now and November. That's number one. Number two, you potentially have the opportunity for Republicans to burn one of their top tier candidates for 2028. Some of the ones that you had mentioned right there, heading into the next election by losing to Donald Trump in November of this year. And then again, they can't run away from Joe Biden's record. They can't run away for the state of the nation right now and say they're going to do it any better. I think any of the other candidates who they would put at the top of the ticket would be able to articulate the things that they want Joe Biden to do better, but when it comes to policy, they'll probably be even worse because they're more, younger and not have as much skin in the game as Joe Biden does right now, and therefore connected to the special interest and lobby groups that are going to continue to push all these awful agenda items down on the American people. Congressman, this was great with catching up with you today. Hopefully you'll be back again at some point in the future. We've obviously got your congressional website live linked in the show description today. Anybody that wants to follow you on social media, if they don't already, check out the great work that you're doing for the American people.
Hey, listen, thanks so much. Go to @ByronDonalds, follow me there, and I appreciate all you guys do. Take it easy.
Oh, we appreciate hosting you today. This is the Congressman who's representing Florida 19 and fighting for all the American people up there on Capitol Hill. Representative Byron Donalds, thanks for joining us on the show. Sir, have a great rest of your week.